2026, and you're listening to the Tech Addicts podcast. Brace yourself. This week, Apple taking on the UK government, EU announcing rules on AI transparency, Amiga and Commodore, we know who they are now, Timex bringing back a classic watch, Ted's grip gets sticky, and the Googlebook. Lots to discuss. Hello and welcome to the Tech Addicts podcast. We're back for another exciting and enthralling show. I'm your host, Gareth, and I'm joined, as ever, by Mr. Ted Salmon. How are you, Ted?
Hello, Gareth. I'm very well and cheerful, thank you. And I would like to say that from on every podcast now, I shall approach it very cheerfully and not miserably, because I've had complaints.
Oh, really? Have you? Oh, dear.
Except for whatever works. No one complains about whatever works.
That's because you enjoy doing it.
That's because I'm with the nutcase Aidan, and we kind of encourage each other to be stupidly cheerful. First things first, weather report. It is cloudy and 22 degrees today and very little wind. It's very nice today, and tomorrow's going to be very nice, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, these stupid heat's coming back, so much so that if anyone is listening to this who also listens to Projector Room, we moved Projector Room to Thursday evening when it should be a bit cooler. But yeah, we've got a kind of mini heat wave coming back. As you probably know from the forecast, if you live in England, it's going to be terrible down south again. But it's even reaching us on Wednesday.
Oh, right, okay. I hadn't clocked in on that. It's too busy raining here and generally being around about 16 degrees. But I do see that Thursday's supposed to be 24 degrees here, which is, roasty toasty for us. I feel sorry for England being at least 10 degrees higher than that.
Me too.
Ouch. Yeah, and you'll feel that too, being in a tin can in the middle of the desert. Right.
Yeah, exactly. With no shade, no trees to cover me. I've got a brolly. I've got a big brolly. I can sit under that, but that's about all I've got.
Are you allowed to plant some trees and wait 10 to 12 years for them to...
I'll be dead by then.
Oh, right. Oh, well, that's you're not that old, are you?
I'm 63. In 12 years, I'll be 75. I can't imagine being alive at 75, but you never know. My dad's still going. I can't
imagine how grumpy you're going to be at 75.
Yes.
I mean, you're already Victor Meldrew times 2. So, grief, I think you'll have to stop podcasting and people will have to, put signs around you and condemn wherever you happen to be.
I started off trying to be cheerful here. You dragged this down.
Yes. Well, you can stop complaining about him. He's chipper, folks. I heard him clicking his heels together, and then he went, "Oh, bugger me," because it was so sore. Yes. Well, on the show this week, we have Apple challenging the UK government data access request.
We have the EU announcing new rules on AI transparency.
Amiga and Commodore are kind of back together again.
And we have a look at Dell's first Googlebook, expected to feature XPS branding alongside the Lenovo and Asus announcements as well, which we'll kind of pull in together.
And time permitting, the Timex Retroware digital watch, an 80s inspired retro futuristic watch that looks a bit like an Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, we'll actually go and have a look at what people have said to us, because we have feedback this week, aside from people giving off about Ted being a twat. Phil has written in about I mentioned on the last show that I had bought myself the Google TV streamer, and now coming to save the day after I've written that, Phil is recommending listening to your thoughts about the streamer and Ethernet. Have you thought of the Manhattan Aero? Which is something I did see on Amazon. I think they sell it on Amazon, or they sell a variant of it, but I wasn't able to see the one with Ethernet. Because they generally do those set-top boxes that allow you to have free view and record free view, a bit like Humax did a few years ago and those sorts of things. But they have a streaming box called the Aero that has Ethernet on the back, and it acts very much like a Google TV or a NVIDIA Shield. But I had a look through it, and there's no side loading, which some people may find a bit of an issue. But it is one of the boxes that supports the Freely app, which is a new way of getting Freeview that is generally on televisions built into the ecosystem, from what I gather. But it's not an app you can go and get from the App Store. But you might be able to sideload it somehow. But then this doesn't support sideloading, so it might not be good. But he followed it up with another email regarding the Aero is only streaming option that Manhattan do. The others are all Freeview and FreeZap based. An alternative is the NetGem Pleo, Pleio, which he says he has no direct experience with that Pleo, but it is said that the Aero runs on a TiVo platform, and it doesn't support Now TV. He's got 4 of them. And whenever he got a bit hacked off with Sky. So thanks for your recommendations there, Phil. It's still a bit of a barren landscape, and I think there's no one unit covers everything anymore. I was even looking at Roku just the other day to see, because my son is using his TV speakers, and the Roku Stream Bar that I bought for my daughter years ago, and Ted, you have one, is still such a great product that I went off and thought, I'll go and get one of those, but they're now £160 because there's a new smaller version that's the £90 version, which I might actually pick up for him in the next couple of weeks for his birthday to beef up his sound experience on his TV. But Roku's still a bit meh at the moment because they're doing dodgy things in the background with their advertising and stuff. And I don't particularly like everything that I see.
They've also been bought out by Fox, haven't they? So who knows what's going to happen. That's one of the things, yeah.
So yeah, there's plenty to do and look at, but there's not that much that really satisfies. But thanks, Phil, for your recommendation of that Manhattan Aero. It does look like a really good option for anyone who hasn't gone and bought a Google Streamer TV thing. But I'm quite happy with it at the moment. If I get hacked off with it, I'll get rid of it and follow Phil's advice.
I can't imagine having anything that doesn't let you put Plex on it, though. That's the trouble. If the Manhattan, you can't put a Plex app on it, that's me finished.
I think you can, yeah.
Oh, you could. I thought you said there was no apps and sideloading.
Sideloading outside of the App Store, being able to put on something that isn't in their App Store. But I think Plex is there.
Oh, okay.
But I can't confirm that. I didn't actually look. I just took it as granted that Plex was there. Maybe it's not.
Okay, fair enough.
There's a few reviews on it on YouTube, and I scooted through a couple of them, but I didn't note that. Sorry. JT Manuel has written in about the compact cameras I happen to mention as well. And he says, I have a couple of compact cameras, a Samsung and a Canon, which are being used regularly since 2010. I rarely use my phone's camera even for videos. Almost every event and holiday, those 2 cameras are present. Oh, and I still use my Moto Mod Hasselblad camera with my Moto Z3 Play.
Whoa!
So, yeah, there you go.
Amazing. So, I wish I hadn't sold mine, because I think I would still be using mine as well. But using it as an Android phone, I can't remember what version of Android's on it, but it can't be far off dropping off the end of support from even the Play services updates.
Yeah, well, correct. I declined to ask him actually which Samsung and Canon he's using. That would have been an intelligent question for me to ask, but I was running late for something, and I sent him a turt reply. I can't even remember what it was, but be good to know which one it was. I actually dug out another digital camera. My mum happened to be going through stuff, and she happened upon a Nikon Coolpix. I did look it up the other day. The S51C, which is a really nice little camera. But I've noticed. Do you remember on the Google Pixel, whenever you picked it up and wiggled it, you could hear the camera knocking about inside?
Yeah, that's to do with the OIS, isn't it?
OIS, that's what it is. But this Nikon Coolpix, it does it as well.
Ah.
But I asked about it online in some online forums, and they said it was the shutter cover, because it doesn't. I think the spring after a while gets a wee bit lax, so it jiggles a bit. But whenever I open it, it doesn't do it. So I'm not going to demonstrate that, because that's just silence. But little digital cameras. I'm so glad, and JT Manuel there is ahead of the form. He's already on the ball and using his little compact cameras everywhere he can, and that's what other people should do. Encourage the ecosystem to come back. Canon have already committed to doing stuff. Hopefully we can get Nikon and Fujifilm and things like that to get back in and start making compact cameras again, because they were great. All the different shapes and sizes of them, what they managed to put in. I've thrown it away now, but there was I was going through my compact cameras the other day, and there was a Canon Ixus 800 Ti. It was a beautiful metal shell. I'm using it in the past tense because it doesn't exist anymore. But whenever I was trying to take pictures with it, the focus wouldn't work. It wouldn't autofocus, and there's no way you can manually focus. So it was just blurry pictures all over. So I decided to take the opportunity to take it apart and have a look at the innards. And it was so beautifully compact. All the electronics just stuffed in there, and every effort has been made to pull this down in size. If you open up a phone and have a look at it, it's really neatly put together, but this is even more so, and it's kind of all proper, like 3 dimensions. You've got different circuit boards beside each other, and then the battery on there, and the screen over there, and the buttons, interfaces on the top and things. It's just brilliant going inside and having a look. It utterly bamboozling how they managed to do this. Must be robots or something that put them together, but inside those little compact cameras is it's just genius. It really is. Have you ever opened one up?
No, I haven't. I never felt the need to, but it's nice, isn't it, when you find something that has been thought. I have opened up a Nikon SLR and had a look inside those, and they were similarly made just fabulously inside, and it's just such a shame that these things have gone away. But yes, I agree with you. It would be great to see a resurgence of well-made, proper compact cameras, and not just cheapo plastic crapo things that are littered all over Amazon with no names that you can pronounce.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy, but a lot of those are actually stock that other camera manufacturers might have had. You'll see Samsung have called back or recalled all of their cameras that Argos had that were unsold, and then they've just flogged them off to another vendor who has repackaged them and rebranded them, so you don't actually know what you get inside them. It's a bit like those old brands, like was it Matsui and Grundig and stuff, that were just repurposed circuit boards clicked together. So you don't know what you're actually getting inside. It's not freshly made stuff.
It'd be quite interesting to get someone's inside line on that and say, you must buy this one, because actually it's not that unpronounceable name, it's really one of these. And you say, oh yeah, that'll be a real bargain then.
Yeah, like I have a Sandstrom TV in my bedroom that I've actually had for about it's almost 20 years now,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really good. It's an LCD or LED, I can't remember, but it's a big 1080p TV that's stuck on the wall, and it's worked no problems. But it's all Samsung inside.
Right.
But it was rejects, where Samsung TV has broken. They've taken out the good working parts and put them into these Sandstorms, and resold them through Curry's or PC World or Dixon's or whatever it was, and I got one, and it's just good. It just works, does everything you need, and it's half the price of what a Samsung is.
Maybe it's the same with these radios as well. These DAB radios and FM radios that come out of China with unpronounceable names. Perhaps if you took those apart, they would be similarly recognisable inside. Yeah, interesting.
Could be. Yeah, and they probably get a grant as well for not generating more e-waste because they're reusing parts.
Mm.
Very good, very good. Oh, we're off to a good start on this show. Let's spoil that by moving on into the news. If we're going to start with Apple, because Apple is challenging the UK government data access request. Apple's launched a legal case against our government to request our government's request for backdoor access, essentially, to encrypted iCloud data, and it's rekindled this legal battle that began a few years ago, I think, whenever the UK government initially tried to gain access to that, or get Apple to build a backdoor, which they stepped away from and backed down whenever Apple said, if you want this, we'll stop selling our product in the UK. But now Apple have taken them back to court. The UK government has issued a technical capability notice requiring Apple to provide access to the encrypted data. The technical capability notice, because I like saying that, it sounds very intelligent and savvy, something we don't get often on this show. It was specifically targeted at the UK and the US customers under the UK Investigatory Powers Act, and the law allows the UK authorities to compel companies to provide data to law enforcement of terrorism and child sexual abuse cases. And Apple had previously removed an ADP protection for the UK customers in January of 2015, citing security risks. What do you think, Ted? Is this a court case that you're going to follow closely, and Apple will win?
I've no idea. But you have summarised the whole thing beautifully, I think. Well done. And you've covered every point that could have been covered. And in terms of what's being said here, I think it comes down to whether or not people in Britain want to let the government be looking after their child sexual abuse and terrorism issues, and or whether they think it's because the inference here is that if they leave this open for people to be locked down, then all these terrorists and child sexual abusers will just use Apple iCloud because they know that they can't be got there. So the question for your average UK citizen is, do you want terrorists to be able to communicate with each other, or do you want child sexual abuse stuff going on in your community, knowing that the government can't do anything about that? Or do we want to lock that down, but in order to do so, all your iCloud data is open and out there for the government to see? And it's a dilemma, isn't it? It's a moral maze, and I wouldn't like to have to be in charge of that decision. But Apple seem to be trying really hard to stick to their stance on the whole thing, and equally the UK government is pushing back on the whole thing too. So I don't know.
Well, yeah, it leaves us, the customer, in a bit of a quandary at the moment, because we do have two titans kind of fighting it out here, where you've got big tech and the government. And on the one hand, at the moment, I think most people are sort of siding with big tech, saying They don't want the government to have access to their personal data in that way. And Apple are saying that this is creating a backdoor that could make data accessible, compromising user security, because that backdoor needs to be secured in such a way that whilst the government is allowed access to it, that's a security that they can't really 100% ensure. And we've seen that happening more and more. I think in, what was it? I saw it in John Oliver actually last week. The article about security cameras, and I can't remember if it's Ring or something like that, but there was some particular security camera organization that set up that allowed police to be able to gain access through a back door to security footage of things that were happening around a particular area. And whenever they looked at the statistics, the people who had access to those security cameras had been using it massively, and it was an invasion of people's privacy, where there was like 180 hours worth of a particular security camera in a fast food chain that was watching employees on their way in and out, and it wasn't the employers who were using it. It was local law enforcement or city councillors or something like that were watching this feed constantly, and they were using it for their own information to be able to work out if it's going to be a busy day at the restaurant to go and get a lunch, or they can go and check whether or not they're going to have to stand in a queue for a while, which is complete misuse of what it is there. And you can't guarantee that that's not going to happen with Apple's information if they build in a back door. So we're stuck in the middle between Apple saying, no, we're trying to keep this big tech secure, we don't want the government to come in, which, if something were to happen and Apple was to be found to be doing something nefarious, as Meta had been doing with digital books, they were scanning, or they downloaded a massive torrent full of ebooks that they hadn't paid for and used that to train one of their AI models. The government has to step in and say, no, you can't do that. If something was to happen to Apple with their information, we can't then go to the government and say, yeah, Apple have done this. And the government would have been able to say, well, that wouldn't happen if we were able to go in through the back door and secure everything. It's going to be those two are just going to be able to blame each other for anything that happens in the future after this. And we're going to be the people who are impacted the most and losing our privacy. So it's a bit of an impasse that the two are at, and I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I worry about it as well, a bit like after 9/11. America got the Patriot Act that stripped away a large amount of their First Amendment rights, and they became, all in the name of terrorism, and privacy was stripped away in the name of terrorism. So it's a real concern, and I don't think anyone's going to be happy with the outcome, because it's not going to be in our favour. It's just who wins out of this court case. So I'll be following it quite closely to see what happens, because I am concerned. And Google hasn't been brought into this because I think, I'm not sure what the stats is on Google yet, because I haven't read up on that, but I will do for a future show, hopefully.
The last thing I heard about Google was that they were giving in to American courts if pushed, and they would give over data. So they're not. The last time I read about it, they weren't taking the same stance as Apple were. But if you went onto the streets of New York and started interviewing people and said to them, you'd have to identify the Apple users, obviously. So, are you okay with your iCloud data being open to the government to check for terrorist activity, or would you rather run the risk of another 9/11? Then I'm sure that most people would say that they would rather not. They would rather do whatever they could to stop terrorist activity going on. And also child sexual abuse cases going on. And if you went onto the streets of London, because this is all about the UK and Apple's iCloud data in the UK, I think that probably many people would be saying the same thing. Let the government have the data. Most people will say they've got nothing to hide anyway. I know that there's another argument to the whole "I've got nothing to hide" thing, which is a big topic for another day. But most people will just say, "Yeah, I'd rather be safe."
Yeah, but then it takes one false flag, which a lot. I'm going to dare to say it here, but there's a lot of people out there who think that 9/11 was a false flag operation so that they could rewrite, or they could write the Patriot Act and bring it in. So that does resonate in the back of your mind, that it's easy enough for the government to be able to do that. I don't believe the British government could do it as well as the American government could have done it, had they done it. Not that I'm saying that they did do it, just to protect myself there. But if the British government was to try and do it, it would be a complete and utter fucking shambles. A bit like the Online Safety Act that Keir Starmer and his bungling group of politicians have tried to do. And it just shows the short-sightedness, because I live in Northern Ireland, which is one country of the United Kingdom, that's Great Britain and Northern Ireland. But whenever they make these decisions, they're not actually addressing Northern Ireland. They're just like, yeah, forget about Northern Ireland for now. We'll work that out at a later date. A bit like they did with COVID, a bit like they did with Brexit. So they've got these hag-ons, these stakeholders, if you like, that they're just ignoring because it complicates the process. But they want to just, plow on in with this process. Northern Ireland is very different in that we have different security laws. We have international terrorists here, and we have a continuing threat toward police. And well, MPs, MLAs, all those sorts of things, from terrorists because of the way their political beliefs are. And that's different in England. They don't tend to have that as much, so they shouldn't be writing their own rules and laws that could potentially affect Northern Ireland without fully consulting Northern Ireland. I know we have devolved governments, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, it's true. Whenever for the Online Safety Act, if I want to go to Pornhub, I have to go and provide my address and information, which isn't right. I shouldn't have to do that because I live in a country where my security is slightly different to England, Scotland and Wales. So, it needs to be addressed for the Union, not just for England, Scotland and Wales. Sorry, personal rant over.
It must be really difficult to run a country or a bunch of countries and be a politician. I really do think that whatever is done, you just can't win. You can never please all the people all the time. So,
you can't. But it came out in the COVID inquiry that that one of the audio recordings had Boris Johnson being asked about Northern Ireland, and he just said, "Forget Northern Ireland." And that's kind of, oh, right, okay, so that's how they do it then.
Yeah, but that's
sure.
one person, one conversation, and one.
No, but he was Prime Minister at the time.
If you started recording bits of things that Donald Trump says, you no doubt could string him up for all those little things he said allegedly in private to people, or even in his case in public.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Anyway, there you go. Let's not get drawn down that road.
No. Instead, let's go for something slightly... Oh, no, wait, hang on. It's just as serious, yeah. The EU is launching AI transparency rules effective from August 2nd, which was last week. Mm-hmm. And the European Union has implemented these new AI transparency regulations, I think, that require content publishers to label AI-generated content and disclose when interacting with AI agents, effective from the 2nd of August 2024. Which is a really interesting label that has to be placed on things because, it's... Let's take a little. I did a little bit of work here just to see what would happen, right? So, what I did was I wrote a review on my website of a movie, and whenever I take that, I find the spelling and grammar check in Word and Google Docs to be, well, shit, to be honest. So what I find you can do is if you take it and run it through either ChatGPT or Gemma, depending on which one you have credits for the day, it'll sort things out and it'll line things up nicely. So I did that, and I took my review and I put it into AIdetector.com, and it said that 81% of it was AI generated. Right, okay. So which 81%? But I went through and I had a reread of it, and I was like, well, yeah, okay. So I went to the Wayback Machine and I pulled my review of the HTC Diamond from 2004, I think it was, or 2, or 3, somewhere around that. And I took that and I stuck it into Gemma and asked it to do any typos and change anything that was grammatically incorrect. And then I stuck it into AI as well, or AI detector, and it said it was 67% AI generated. I was like, oh, right, okay. So what is happening here? Because I've used that to spell check and tighten things up a wee bit, it's now not majority of my work, it's majority of Gemma's work, which doesn't label things correctly. So if they were to use some sort of AI-based AI detector to go across websites, where AI has been used to help the web page or the article that they're using, it doesn't necessarily mean that the article is written by AI. It's just, it's AI enhanced to make it more readable for the writers, and it increases maybe the accuracy or something like that of the article, and it'll help our kids because they'll be reading things that aren't written by, I don't know, a badly educated 20-year-old from Northern Ireland who's trying his best to inform people of whether or not the HTC Diamond was a good phone. And putting in, badly learned grammatical oddities that AI is able to clean up quite nicely and turn into a nicer review. Greatly, much nicer review that reads much easier. So, what do you think, Ted? Is this a wise thing to do, or should it be whenever the person is actually putting the post up, they just go, yeah, I've used AI for this and that. My image is at the top of a post. Whenever I do a film review, I'll take a screenshot and stick in an AI enhanced version of the logo. So do I have to label my whole article as AI?
They say that if you live in the EU, you will have to, yes, you need to label, mandatory labelling. You have to put an AI-generated label on whatever you do. And that's not just for images, that's for all sorts of things that you might create. So if you use AI at all, I guess you've got to put a badge on it, and I guess that what they need to do really, if they're going to take this to its nth degree, is to create a universal AI badge that sits in a corner, not just a Gemma diamond shape, but actually a universal one that makes sure that everyone knows that it's the same right across the board. So there's that. There's also chatbot stuff as well. There was a story in the Guardian this week about a guy who had lost a huge amount of money because someone had sampled their dad's voice or their son's voice or something, and they had made up a conversation and blah blah blah. So how you're going to do that audibly? That's another question. There's also some exemptions apparently. So, and this is the quoted exemptions. If you're creating explicitly satirical, fictional, or artistic work, then you don't have to do this. So, The first thing I thought of when I thought of this was Orson Welles and his War of the Worlds thing, and putting that out as a piece of fiction, and yet everyone thought it was real. So what they're saying here is that it's okay to create something like that using AI if you want to or not, but not to have to badge it with AI. And lastly, there's a bunch of huge penalties for those that don't comply, up to fines for 15 million euros or 3% of the company's annual revenue. So there's all of that. But I just think it's going to be, well, firstly, if it's EU only, then it's not going to affect everyone worldwide, which means that tons of AI generated content that currently comes out of America and Asia and Australia and everywhere else that's not in the EU can do what they like anyway. So it's not going to be universal. I suppose they're hoping that people might match it and join in and do it in their regions as well, but I don't think they're going to. Do you?
No.
That's the end of that
one. Moving on.
What's next?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of looking at the time as well, going, wow, these two stories have been quite thoroughly done, but that's me just banging on. Mm-hmm. So we'll get on to something a bit more fun. Dell's first Google book, it's going to take a while to get used to saying that now, is expected to feature XPS branding, which is according to Geekbench data. The premium XPS branding potentially is going to be using Qualcomm's Snapdragon X processor, Ted. Do take it forward with this, will you?
Making it more like a phone, I guess, or one of these Snapdragon laptops that are coming along. The interesting bit here about over the last few days, we've had 3 announcements in actual fact. First of all was the Lenovo one, and they put up their thing about the 2-in-1, the 15-inch Googlebook 2-in-1, which is very much like the Duet, which I favour hugely. Then you've got this Dell one, the XPS, using that branding, and that one is a 13.4-inch OLED panel, so that's a bit smaller. But then in the middle of this, you've got the Asus, and the Asus CX9406 is actually running on a Panther Lake chipset, and it's got much more RAM. It's got 64 gigs of RAM on board, loads more connections and plugs and ports and all the rest of it. It's also made out of what is being called an ultra ceramic alloy chassis. And it's got a fingerprint reader and all those things that make a product stand out. The Asus one seems to be the one where they're pitching it high, and they're obviously going to charge £1,000+ quid for it, and it's going to be the Google book to have. They've all got to have a dedicated Gemini key on the keyboard, and they've also, as I understand it, the Google are mandating as part of the hardware that they've got to have a lid-mounted glow bar, in the same way as the forthcoming Pixel 11 phones are going to have. So on the back of the device, on the lid, they've got to have this long light, which was, I may say, present on the original Pixel book, which is still here, and that's really nifty. But yeah, if you're going to keep an eye on the announcements so far, the Asus to me seems to be the one, the bit of a powerhouse compared to the other. But the Lenovo one is the only one so far where they're offering a 2-in-1, like the Duet, and personally I fancy that. The XPS line is well thought about over history from Dell, and I'm sure that'll carry some weight. But fine details are still sketchy. The aluminium OS is not really clear in terms of what it's doing as a merger of Chrome OS and Android. So we'll have to see what comes of that and what comes out. But worth keeping an eye on to see what other announcements come along.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll keep our ear to the ground with more interesting things to come in the future. Yeah. good looking, good looking. I like the idea of this. It's growing on me. I know it was a bit past remarkable about it on the last show, but yeah, I think it might be coming around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, staying with Googlebooks, we've got the Lenovo Googlebook 15, which Android Authority and Digital Citizen have noticed a bit of a leak ahead of it. What can you tell us about this?
Where are you going? Sorry, you've lost me now.
The Lenovo Googlebook 15?
Oh no, that's the one I've just been talking about. So in my roundup of the 3 devices that have so far been announced, the Lenovo are doing the 15-inch one and also the 2-in-1, the duet style one. So I kind of covered that in my blurb just now.
I heard the word duet and I thought, you and I are a duet, aren't we? Yeah. That's where my brain went whilst you were talking about it. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Okay, we'll move on to the next one then, because it's quite fun, actually. The Timex Retroware Digital. Timex are launching a new original digital watch that combines 1980s aesthetics with kind of modern functionality in a bold, playful way, I suppose, in a nice design. Unlike Timex's traditional Q revival line, this is an original model that pays homage to the watches that we knew from the 1980s, and it combines nostalgia, I suppose, with practical modern features. In a fairly unique button layout, and it represents Timex's ongoing effort to create eyebrow-raising timepieces, as they say. What do you think of this? Did you ever have an Iron Man?
No, it was a bit off of my radar already. I did have Timex watches. I had Casio watches. I in the 70s particularly, I was really into watches and watched the design move forward and the tech stuff. And the one that I remember first was the all but black screen, and you press the button to get the time up in red digits, and I loved that watch. And then we moved on to I particularly remember a Citizen one, which had loads of LCDs all over it, and all the Casio ones. But Timex, I didn't really get into. They were the Timex watches I liked were more the ones where the whole screen was luminous. They were great. So you wake up in the night and you just look at your watch and it's just like completely glowing. I probably got cancer because of that, but they were the Timex ones to me, and I completely missed this thing. They're likening the design here of this particular retro one to a parking meter. Maybe by the time this came along in the 80s, I kind of dropped out. They're talking about triathlon and Ironman, as you say. So perhaps I kind of gone away from watches by then. Do you remember these?
Well, both my brother and I had Iron Mans. Yes, that's their name. So it's not Iron Men, it's Iron Mans. And my father bought them for us because they were, fairly indestructible, and you could go sailing in them and swimming and things like that. So they were good, solid watches, and they looked the part. These have nice screens, I'll give them that, and a nice display of the digital information on it. But around it, it's just bland and boring. Especially that blue. That blue looks tacky and cheap. The greyish black one looks a bit more elegant, I suppose. And I know we're not going for elegance here, but we are going for something that's $150, and that's not, cheap crap. That's a functional watch that you can take with you and expect results from. That blue one doesn't work at $150. I'm sorry. If you go on Google the original Iron Man and just look at how good looking that timepiece was on your wrist, despite being a rough watch essentially, and it was the equivalent of the Casio G-Shock essentially. This doesn't hold a candle to it at all. I'm sorry. I am not interested in these anymore. I quite liked the grey one to start with, but Having gone through it and seen that blue one, I just thought, nah, there's much better out there, and you might even be better off going onto eBay and see if you can track down an Iron Man. I think they actually made them up until quite recently. I remember looking for one and finding one.
Do you like the design of the display though? That kind of that design of how the numbers are all kind of going into the circle.
Yeah, yeah, I
Right.
think that's kind of
Okay.
modernised and interesting. But if you compare that to the first gen and the second gen of the Iron Man, which did have much smaller, limited displays,
Hmm.
it just no way, not in comparison to those old groovy watches that had proper buttons and yeah, nah.
Fair enough.
Anyway, right, more exciting news yet again. Amiga and Commodore are coming back together again. Now, this is a really difficult, complicated one because whenever you think of Commodore, you think of either the Commodore 64, the VIC-20, I suppose, or the Commodore Amiga. And Amiga was a different brand that had a different. It was broken down into all sorts of things, and it got really, really messy. And I know we've covered Commodore and branding and things like that, or at least Commodore and purchases of various brands in previous podcasts. But it's only now that things have become a lot more uniform, a lot more formalized, and a lot more known. Because up until recently, Commodore and Amiga have been a mess. Because you've got the Commodore brand, you've got the Commodore patents, you've got the Amiga brand, you've got the Amiga itself, you've got the Amiga OS that runs on it, you've got the ROMs, you've got the software, all these different things that all come under various different things that have been divided up over years. And you've got the Amiga Corporation, and you've got Hyperion, and then you've got your man from YouTube, whose name has just disappeared out of my head. It was in this article, but I can't find it now. It's somewhere there. But yeah, he bought it recently and he's relaunching it. He does retro recipes on YouTube. But what's happened is that finally, through a court case, it's all been brought together and it's a lot more clear about who owns what and what can be done in order to push this forward. Because thankfully, it appears that all of those who are involved in owning these copyrights and trademarks and entities and IPs, they do actually care about what they own, and they want to see something happening where their property can go on to make a bit of money, and they can see Commodore and Amiga arriving on the market to purchase again. I think the first, well, the most popular big one coming is the new retro games Commodore Amiga A1200 that was supposed to be out by now. It was due to be released in June. We covered it at the end of last year, but it's been put off until I think it's the 12th of December or something this year. Then they're looking for that to ship, and that's primarily down to a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons is the software that's on it. It's not at the best place that it should be, but Amiga OS continues to evolve, and I think version 4 is coming out fairly soon, and they've all agreed to what that should be and what it should be compatible with and all that sort of thing. So we're good when it comes to Commodore and Amiga. We should start seeing Commodore and Amiga branded devices arriving, and it might even come to par that the retro games machine that arrives in December could have both Commodore and Amiga branding. And wouldn't that be amazing to actually have a new Commodore Amiga A1200 that is fully functioning with a working keyboard landing on your doorstep for Christmas? I'm very excited about that, because the wee Spectrum that we got, it doesn't have Sinclair up in the corner. It's got Retro, the Spectrum, up in the top left-hand corner, and that's what they were going to have to do with this, to have some sort of Retro and then the Amiga or something on there. I can't remember what it shows on the Amazon listing or one of the listings, but it's very exciting times for Commodore and Amiga fans out there. Ted, are you enthusiastic about this at all?
Who need to enthuse with you, because I can't, I'm afraid. As previously noted, this is all off of my radar completely, and I think I'm probably the wrong age to some degree to have got into all this, a bit like Iron Man watches, I suppose. So, dear listener, if you can enthuse with Gareth about this, then do write in. I got an email from talking about gaming. I got an email from Evercade this week saying that they're
Yeah.
pushing out this new device and even more games coming along and blah blah blah, and it might be worth covering that on the show because at least I've got some input on that.
Well, we could mention it. I wanted to mention one other thing before we do, and it's to hark back to something that I talked about whenever this was first announced, that retro games machine. And it's a fully functioning computer, and Amiga OS is really a top-notch piece of software. And it's worth I recommend anyone who has the means to be able to go out and test it. This new computer that's coming out from Retro Games is a full functioning computer, and it's an offline computer as well. And that could be a big thing for many people because people are tiring of the internet being always there, and it would be nice to have an option of being able to sit down at a computer that isn't online, and that
Really?
you're not being plagued by notifications or whatever, and you actually sit down and you can do something.
Really?
People like to take yeah. There's functions you can get for your browser that will that allow you to focus and concentrate whenever you're writing or you're doing something, you're working, and people are tired of that. So you'll be able to turn your online computer off and go and sit down at an old computer like this with a modern interface and be offline, and then it'll tell you, or you'll be able to go and check, oh, is there an update, and then you'll use your online computer, go and update your offline computer.
Well,
You won't have to worry about viruses or anything like that.
That'll solve the previously mentioned AI in the EU and iCloud in the UK problems, won't it?
Yeah. You could have your spreadsheets on an entirely different computer. Imagine that, without having to go and have a fully offline computer, because computers gurn at you about updating operating systems because you're not online, or you can't even install the operating system because you're not online. That annoys a small subset of people, including myself. But yes, Evercade are putting out the Nexus, and it's got a new Doom-based game release as well.
Oh yeah.
But I think the bad news at the moment is that scalpers have already got them, and if you go onto eBay, you can see them being sold for £1,000 because they're £200 to buy from Fun Stock, I think it is, or I think Amazon might have them as well. But the pre-orders I think are all dried up, and scalpers are now shoving them onto eBay, going, "Ooh, look at this, £1,000." Bit scary, or €1,000 at least. I saw that this morning on Reddit. Yeah. So yeah, that the scalpers will ruin your fun if you want to have them. There we go. There's a bummer for the day. But let's get into a wee bit of bantering, because there's a few things I wanted to mention. I'm going to start with a personal story, which I might have talked about on the last in the last season, and that's my mother's iPad. My mother, she's 84 and she has an iPad, and she uses it for three things: email, QVC, which is an online shopping thing, and FaceTiming with her family. That's it. That's all she does. It sits in her kitchen. It gets charged every few days. It never leaves there, and it doesn't need to be secured. It's got no other information other than family information and her QVC purchasing information. But a recent update a couple of months ago saw Apple install a passcode on it, and she wasn't able to get into it one morning. Even though the passcode was turned off. My mother has been through cancer, so her fingertips have suffered. She can't use thumb ID because she actually has no fingertips to speak of, and they're not regenerating because of the cancer treatment. She also has very limited feeling in her fingers, so I turned off the passcode so she didn't have to enter a 6-digit code every time she wanted to use her iPad. So, because it's just her and there's no reason for security. But this came along, installed, and it was there. And I had to take the iPad away and do a full factory reset to get it back. Then last week, it happened again. She got locked out of her iPad because the passcode had been installed. But this time I have the passcode and it's all been set up and then turned off. But there was a problem. I couldn't get it to restart. And I hooked it up to iTunes on a Windows 11 computer and it wouldn't detect the iPad at all. So I ended up going up to Belfast on Friday to the Apple store because we have one in Northern Ireland. Thankfully, I live quite close to Belfast. I'm not like one of the poor saps that lives up in Derry, Londonderry, who has to come all the way down to do this on a 2-hour train ride to get to the Belfast Apple store. And they plugged it into their MacBook and they went, oh, no, maybe the port is broken. And I was, oh, shit, right, okay. That means she has to buy a new iPad. And they went, well, we'll try it on another computer. No, that doesn't seem to be working either. And then one of the other geniuses at the Apple Genius Bar went, hang on a second, I want to try one other thing. And he went and got a particular MacBook off someone else who was using it. And he brought it over and he plugged it and he went, ah, that worked. This is the latest MacBook. That's interesting. It must be something to do with the software that's on the iPad is not recognizing older devices. Interesting. I was like, wow. You know, we've always said, and people have always said, you know, Apples just work, aside when they don't. And that really narked me because he had to do a full factory reset on it. And I said, I told him about the passcode thing, and he went, yeah, you're gonna have to watch out for the next update. Turn off automatic updates, and then download it manually and log back in, and then deactivate the passcode. Like, really? Wow. God, you don't make this easy for a pensioner. And I know that seems targeted at Apple, but it's not, because she's using Apple because, you know, Android's even harder for her to do things with. It's not as easy an interface for her to do. But, you know, it's I worry about getting old. Ted, you're already there, so you know what I'm talking about. But whenever you start losing your faculties and things like that, but we're so ingrained in online, you know, all our banks are online. My mother's bank isn't online. She goes down and gets them to print out a copy of her statement and then brings it home to put in her file that's in a filing cabinet that's locked, and the key is kept in a special place that only I know. And she knows from time to time. Sometimes she doesn't know, and I have to help her with that. But, you know, going forward, I dread to think what it's going to be like whenever I'm 80 and trying to use technology. Already I feel like I'm slipping. And Ted, we all know you're slipping too, don't we? What do you think?
I've had Apple password problems myself in the past. I remember back in the day when I had an iMac and a iPad, and it was all great until something went wrong and you forget your password, and Apple just make it really difficult for you to get out of that cul-de-sac and back out again. And in the end I just like, oh, for goodness sake. And then when I was doing my podcasting, setting up my podcasting empire, I knew I had to put the RSS stuff into Apple's directory for podcasting, and so it all started again, and I didn't know what the password. Anyway, we went through it all. Eventually I got my way out of it, then, so that's now working. But the easiest way to deal with that is to just make sure you've got an iOS device, because when you try and log in, they say there's been a code sent to your iPhone. So I've got this little old iPhone, and every time this happens, I go and turn it on, and sure enough, there's the code waiting for me. So there's that. But I was thinking to myself, what happened if that phone fell in the sea or something? Then I would have to try and do something about getting back in after that. But anyway. So that I think they, in the name of security, they just take it too far. Then, sure enough, the other day I was talking to my sister, who is not at all techie, but she has iPad stuff, iPhone stuff. She's got an iPhone and an iPad and an iWatch, whatever it's called, an Apple Watch. She has the kind of Apple thing going on, and she said the same thing to me. She said, "I'm really confused. I've got a new iPad replacing the old one, and it won't let me in because it says the password is wrong. And it turns out she's got one password for something, one password for something else, and whatever she tries to do with it, Apple won't talk to her because they say that it's anyway. In the end, I said to her, I'll tell you what, if I was you, I would go down, make an appointment at your local Apple store, and just go in there and put your two devices down and tell them the whole story and ask them to sort it out for you. I said, have you got the two passwords? And she said, yes, I have. Right. So I said, right, you're armed with all you need. Go into the shop and let them do it. And I think that that's probably the easiest way with Apple, to be honest, as you found out with your mum's equipment. Because trying to do it yourself, there's 3 examples just in this podcast of us all struggling, but then maybe all 3 of us are stupid.
Yeah, well, there's also the fact that there's only one Apple store in Northern Ireland, the whole of the country of Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like over in England, if there's one in every big city or something.
Yeah, there is.
But, if someone coming from way up where, that's a real pain. Our public transport system is basically a cross shape, so you can. It's hard for you to get down. It's an all-day affair if you need to get from way over there down to Belfast.
I understand that issue. My sister happens to live close enough to Cambridge to go and use that one, but if you're within kind of shot of a city or big town in England, I think you've got some chance of there being a shop.
Yeah, but that's going to be what we have to deal with whenever we're old, and I think it's probably going to go away, and shop fronts go away as well. Like Apple will probably eventually close the one down in Belfast, and then it's the same with, I can't think of where there's a Vodafone shop or a Virgin shop if you need to do something like that, if you need to walk into a shop. I know there's 3 shops, 3 UK, but I can't think of where there's Vodafone. Oh no, there is one in Victoria Square, if it's still there. It was there about 10 years ago. But yeah, no, it's a pain, and I think it's going to get worse. Worser. Right, on a cheerier note, I've got a wee recommendation for all you Linux folk out there, and it actually is something that came installed in Linux Mint for me, and it's a thing called Planify, and I kind of glossed over it over the last number of years that I've been using it. And I've been using Todoist, and I do use Planify for my Todoist integrations because it syncs with Todoist to remind me to do something. But I haven't been using it very much, and it was only the other day that I was kind of fiddling about and I was a bit bored, and I was thinking I'd like to be able to see on my website where I'm writing movie reviews and things. I want to be able to have an idea of where I am with a particular review. A project essentially with a workflow. And I was thinking, how can I effectively manage that it is across all my devices, so I can have a quicker look and see what do I have lined up for this Saturday, because I post a movie review every Saturday, and what ones I have in the queue and what stage they're at, because I have to write it, I have to build it onto WordPress, I have to do all of the screenshots, and I have to then proofread it. And then publish it. So I have little labels as well for where everything is now in my workflow. And Planify, I just realized, as a free solution on my computer, does all of that, and it does it really nicely and with beautiful little sound effects as well. And it's just a little piece of software that I've always glossed over, and I just thought, well, I'll have a go. And because it integrates seamlessly with Todoist, everything just syncs, and you don't need to have a Todoist subscription to do this. Hey. And it's got a really pleasant little interface. It's very, very easy to navigate. I did notice a couple of bugs whenever that you can have it on your computer, and then you can have a subsection which is connected to Todoist. And initially I was trying to use the two together, but I now realise that they are two very separate things, and you need everything to be built into your Todoist side of things if you want it to sync across. Just a simple mistake on my part, but that means you can have two private workflows that are not private workflows, but two indigenous workflows that do not work together. So everything I have going through my Todoist can be seen on my phone, and if I just want stuff that's based on my computer, there's a section for me to do that too. And I can set up various different projects to work through with reminders. And for this show, I have now put in reminders for me to do this, that, and this, and that, and this, and that whenever I come to having to edit it or put the show notes together and things like that. And then it'll put up a reminder on my phone to say, hey, you need to do this right now. And it just makes me feel so much more in tune and focused on what I'm doing. I just have to remember to put things into Planify if I want them to show up on my phone. Do you use anything like that, like a workflow manager?
Yeah, I suppose so. But I'm just completely baked into Google services. So all of the Google to-dos and the calendar and the Keep and the Docs and the Drive and all of those, I'm just so delighted that they all work together. And I'm not really much of a tech addict, because if I was, I'd be doing what you're doing, is keeping it away from all of that, and looking for robust offline solutions as well as syncing and fiddling around with all this kind of stuff that you're fiddling around with, and I don't do that because I'm just so baked into Google, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Well, Google does it, and it does it very well. I want to keep my information away from Google.
Yeah,
and I'm trying to circumvent Google from my processing stuff.
Or Microsoft, or Apple, or anyone else. Yeah.
Yeah. Keep away from Microsoft.
I've got a little recommendation as well, which is free file sync. As you know, I've been using for years the sync tool, Microsoft Sync tool, for doing my monthly backups to hard disk drives. So I've got three backups, and I found that free file sync is really nice to use. It does mirroring and two-way syncing and updating, and you can also tailor the whole kind of custom front end to do whatever you want in terms of what goes where, and it's very clear about what's on the left side, what's on the right side, and where the drive is and where you're going to be putting this and all the rest of it. And it enables me to do this kind of what they call a 3-2-1 backup: 3 copies of data, 1 as your primary, 2 as your online, and 3 as your offline, or something like that. Apparently there's a 3-2-1 rule.
Off-site.
And I'm doing that off-site and 1 offline, and yeah. And I found that this whole free file sync, which is totally free, is a really good tool and much more robust and reliable than SyncToy. To be fair, SyncToy was kind of shelved by Microsoft some years ago, so much like Publisher, I was kind of looking to use something that was out of date. But this free file sync, it's really old-fashioned to look at. It's very retro, and the whole front end on Windows 11 is just very, very kind of not quite DOS, but not far off. But actually that suits me, and it works really well. And the backup also, one thing I've noticed is that the backups are much, much quicker than they were on SyncToy, with exactly the same hardware setup. So there's that as well. And it's very intelligent, very smart, and nice to use. So that's my recommendation.
Yeah, that it looks really nice, and the interface looks nicely sort of retro Windows 3.195 kind of interface, and it shows you everything you need to know. We're not having glossy colors or hamburger menus and things like that. It's all there. it could be called a bit chaotic, I suppose, but some people like that, some people don't. I'm going to investigate this because I use SyncThing for everything that I do sync wise, and I find it to be quite good. But I think the two of them are slightly different in that SyncThing is like a continuous synchronization system, whereas Free File Sync moves more towards backup and synchronization.
Yes, yeah.
So they do cover slightly different aspects. And I have my R sync and R clone as well for all my backups and stuff. But SyncThing, I keep the two separate. So that you're not monkeying around with one system that does all of the different things. But I'll investigate this and see whether or not it does stuff that rsync and rclone don't do.
Very nice indeed.
Yeah, cool. All right, the bought report. What have you bought recently?
Oh, just a quick one. The Isabella grip stickers, which if you've got any device, typically in my case, phones that need some grip on the back, and they don't have a TPU available. You can get these little stickers that are actually they seem to be designed for mini skateboards, which I've never heard of.
Fingerboards.
Fingerboards, is it? Okay. Anyway, I've tested loads and loads of ways of doing this, and these ones come out tops for me. So it's just a recommendation, really, saying that if you're looking to add some grip to the back of, well, anything really, even if it's something you're going to put on the desk and leave on the desk, it won't move because these things have got a strange kind of, I don't know, it feels a bit like kind of silk stuff. Yeah, it feels silky, I think. Anyway, they're a fiver. You get 14 of them. They're 4 inches long and about 1.5 inches wide, and you can obviously cut them to whatever size you need them. But yeah, they're really good, grippy little things. So, recommended.
Are you going to get a fingerboard?
I've never heard of fingerboards. What do people do with them? Is it a play thing?
Yeah, it's like a fiddle toy on a desk. You can use your fingers like legs and perform stunts on a fingerboard.
Oh right. Okay.
They're great fun. I had one when I was a kid, and I'd love to get one again. I just haven't actually thought of buying one. I might do.
Okay.
It's a fidget toy. Yeah.
Fair enough. Anyway, nice little grip stickers.
Yeah. No, I haven't actually bought anything this week. Tech wise, it's been a week of Blu-rays and 4Ks, if anything. There's a Cold Prey and In the Name of the Rose, and well, I got this Nikon Coolpix camera, which I didn't buy. I was given. I've got nothing to report. I'm sorry.
Oh dear. I'll give you something to report for next show if you like, which is something that we haven't mentioned before, and you might actually quite like, which is the Roberts solar powered and wind up portable radio, and that looks like it's great fun and right up your street. Let me send you I'll put a link in the show notes so you can have a quick look now. I know we're running long, but bear with me. Where my cursor is, I'll put the link in there, and if you start to explore the photos of that and what it does, it's got a big wind up hand on the back, so you can actually power it yourself, and it's a great lump of a thing, and it's almost industrial. It does everything, and it's completely weatherproofed, and it's got a light on it and an emergency siren and all sorts of stuff. I when I saw that, I thought of you.
Yeah, it's like the one I bought, which was, I don't know, 20 quid.
Yeah.
And it's got a solar panel on the top and things like that. No, but yeah, that looks pretty cool. £150.
Yeah, 150 quid. But it is a bit of a beast. If you see it in context of the size of it, it's quite a big beast, and it's also really robust. Obviously, you can chuck it about on building sites.
I'll be entirely honest with you. Recently, I've been so up to my eyes in zombie stuff. I'm lining stuff up for a Halloween run of zombie things, and I've been reading a book as well called Mountain Man, which was recommended to me. So I'm almost like a prepper now, and I'm looking at this going, yeah, if the zombie outbreak was to happen tomorrow, I could get this, and be able to tune in to anything. Does it do FM radios? Oh, right, okay, yeah. So, yeah, I'll keep an eye on it, maybe, because I do like these sorts of things.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll move into bargain basement where, it's really difficult to get through without making a purchase as well. And we'll start with, it's me first, and it's a battery thing. It's the Noco Genius 2. And this is a really useful little thing to have around the house if you have a car. But I suppose you could use it for other things as well, maybe. It's a smart battery charger. It's a trickle charger, a desulfator, with overcharge protection, temperature compensation, automatic maintainer, and it does both lead acid batteries and lithium batteries as well. And it comes with the alligator clips that you can hook up to a car battery whenever you need to. And it can plug into the wall and gently charge your battery without worrying about it and sort it out. And it's down in price from £55 to £45, which is saving 17%. And that ends in 11 hours and 19 minutes. So hopefully you'll get to hear that before it goes back up.
Cool.
It's quite small as well, which is kind of handy.
Yeah, very small.
But yeah, useful to have, especially when we're coming into the winter and your car battery might not work as well if we're getting really cold winters, because this was a really warm summer. I'm getting one of these just in case.
Or your motorbike, because it also does 6
yes.
volt, which allows for motorbike batteries as well.
Yes, I actually have that on my note here as well, but I didn't quite get to it. I skipped over. Sorry. No, I'm sorry.
Right. Okay. Next up is a mini e-ink ebook reader, which is all the kind of rage at the moment on certain YouTube channels, and it's called an XT e-ink X3. This is the X3 version. It's been reduced from 80 quid to 65 quid. And there is an X4 version out there as well, which is newer, but it's also bigger. And this one's smaller, and you charge it with pogo pins, whereas the X4 you can charge with a USB-C. But it will stick onto the back. If you've got a Qi 2 enabled phone, it will stick on the back of your phone, and you can then just load what you like onto this little reader and use it for reading, and virtually not using any battery. Lasts for ages and ages on its little battery. So yeah, anyway, if you're in the market for an XT e-ink reader, the X3 has been reduced, but the X4 has not been reduced.
Wow, so it's credit card sized e-ink reader.
It's tiny. So
that takes an SD card.
You need good eyes.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I'm just amazed that the people who built this are like, yeah, we need this. There's a demand for this. Is there? Is there really?
It would be interesting to see sales figures, but I think people like clonk it on the back of their phones.
Well, yeah, but you've got a screen on the front of your phone that's slightly larger.
Yeah, but that's going to take up your battery. This thing's got its own battery, and it's a bit like the Yota phone, which I had back in the day. One side is your phone, and the other side's an e-ink panel, which doesn't use hardly any battery.
But I feel like I'm being overly critical of it. But whenever it comes to the Yoda phone, that was used for, like, you could display notifications and things on that, and take it takes away from your screen usage. This is entirely different and independent of your phone.
Yeah.
It just it clicks on.
Yeah.
Wow. I'd be interested to hear from anyone who buys one of these if this is something that they've wanted.
I nominate Jim Fowle. Jim's going to be coming on PSC on Monday evening, so I'll ask him about this and say, have you got one? Because it's just the kind of thing he would have.
Yeah. I'll ask him. Do and phrase it like, what the fuck's the matter with you? Yeah. Oh, okay. That's cool. No, it is. I do like it. I can't for the life of me think of a use case. But we'll move on. Being away on holiday, my daughter brought with her one of these, and it's I don't know if it's the exact one, but they were all the rage, and people were selling them all over the show, but with crappy batteries. I saw one for sale for like, I think it was €5 or something, and it had a 200 milliamp hour battery inside of it. It was the Miady, Miady 2-pack, not as in the wrapper, but as in a collection of two, 5,000 milliamp hour handheld portable fan that does 7 to 20 hours worth of runtime, and it's got a USB rechargeable battery. Then it's got 3 speeds to it as well, and I just thought for two of them for £11.99, and that's down from £24.
Wow.
Probably because there's not much demand for them anymore. I don't know that, but maybe people have bought them for the heat wave or bought them to go away on holiday. But they're really handy just to be able to recharge and throw in your bag. And if they break, bummer, you've got another one, and you can get them easily enough at £12 for two, so £6 each. Dead handy.
Absolute bargain. It's almost made it to my basket. Almost. I'll think about it, because I have got other fans. In the meantime, I shall go for the Samsung Galaxy S25 FE. Limited time deal, £499 for the 256GB version, and £449 for the 128GB version. So if you're in the market for a new Samsung device, it is obviously S25, so it's not an S26, and it's a bit older, but they've got 7. I think this one is included in the 7-year update promise, so there's loads of time for it to be used, and for all intents and purposes, we've got a couple of people in our PSC group that have these, and they really like them. So £200 off the RRP on one, and similar with the other one, and that's a bit of a bargain.
Is there an S26 FE yet? I don't think there is. Does it not usually get launched around Halloween after they?
Oh yeah.
So this is the latest version of the FE line.
The S26 FE. I just looked it up. No, there isn't one yet. So yes, you're probably right. That's coming along soon. Maybe that's why this one's been reduced then, because they know there's one round the corner.
Yeah, so next month they'll probably announce it. So this is the best saving and one of the best phones to buy at the moment. So top stuff there, Ted. Well done.
Mm-hmm.
How condescending. Well done, Ted. Give yourself a pat on the back. This one is a wee bit expensive. Oh, I'm sorry. And I think that these things are really becoming very, very popular. I've seen article after article saying that the mini PC is now the must thing, or the must have, because it's an office jobby, and it's also a gaming jobby, and it does streaming, and it occupies very small amounts of the desk, and people use them for home servers and all sorts of crap. Really, really good stuff. And the AG2, which is an office gaming mini PC with a Ryzen 7 7840HS, which is a pretty beefy little processor to throw inside of it, 32 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. That's the crucial point that we're getting to here, and that's why it is more expensive, I'd say. Alongside 1 terabyte of NVMe SSD storage, is down in price to £600 or £599. It was £700, and I know that is still quite expensive, but whenever you take into account the cost that it is now to build yourself your own PC, buying the RAM is probably going to cost half of what this is. So yeah, this is an option for people, and there's more and more people working toward streaming, where they're maybe using GeForce Now or something like that to play their games, so they don't have to have a big expensive graphics card that's twice the price of what this computer is. They do have to pay a subscription, and Microsoft are wangling their Xbox brand toward a streaming first approach, as opposed to making their Xbox hardware be the be-all and end-all of their their sales. So I think we're going to see Microsoft really embracing streaming, and those that don't want to have the hefty outlay for a home-built PC will probably do well purchasing something like this. And I've got a funny feeling in the future these things are going to become a wee bit more like hen's teeth and a wee bit overpriced. So this might be the good time to be thinking about mini PCs if you want to buy one. Also, if you're like me and like a home server type thing, this is the beast, absolute beast for Linux and for serving stuff. You still using your wee mini PC, Ted?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
is
it works.
dust?
No, it works fine. It's in my dad's garage with my monitor there, and it's working absolutely fine. And it is a little bit noisy, but it's okay. I don't often try and do podcasting there, but with Microsoft Teams noise gating, actually that's becoming less of a problem anyway. I'll tell you the thing, this does look nice, but the thing that stands out for me as being a bit annoying is that you've got to use a proprietary power cable and a brick, and I don't know why they don't just make it USB-C and be done with it, unless perhaps it's a space thing. So inside the box, if it's USB-C, they've got to make space for a power transformer or something that makes it, because with the proprietary one, presumably in the cable, there's a box in the middle of the cable that does that, and so perhaps it's just easier to do that and cheaper than to make it USB-C. Don't know.
Yeah. No, that's it's a good looking thing. It's worth checking out actually at this price. Oh, they don't have 5 payments. I'd entertain it if there was 5 payments. Then you just pay the first one, then return it if you don't like it.
There is also a 512 gig version. Oh, that's not got payments either. And then it goes right down to 8 gigs of RAM. 225 quid that is. 256 gigs of storage and 8 gigs of RAM. So that's the real low end. 225 though.
Yeah.
Right, okay then. Last one is a Ugreen 13 in 1 docking station, which I'd love to have one of these on my desk, and I've said that forever, but I don't really have a need for one. But if you did, then this looks really nice. It's been reduced from 120 quid to 70 quid, and it's got 13 ports and everything you could want to possibly plug into or have plugged into from this is going to do the job. And we like Ugreen stuff, and it's got 140 watts input, so the whole thing's a bit of a powerhouse, and it's just got supports 4K displays and blah blah blah, the 100-watt pass-through charging, blah blah blah, card slots and blah de blah, audio in and microphone in and audio out and anyway, 70 quid reduced from 120.
Look into that slightly closer, because if you click on the £80 one, which is 2 DP and 1 HDMI, there is a voucher on that takes it down to £65.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, so there is. You're a clever bod, aren't you?
Even better.
That ends in 11 hours.
Ah, crap. But there aren't 5 payments on that either, which is annoying.
Mind you, that would only be 11 quid a month. I mean, for goodness sake, 65 quid.
But if you buy it like that with this the £11, and then you can test it out and then return it if you don't like it, rather than having to stump up £65 for it and risk not getting that back.
That's a really good find though. Well spotted, because I'm actually more tempted now.
Oh,
even though I don't really need it, I still want it.
Yeah, that is the lowest that it's ever been at. So
yeah, very very nice.
It's very nice.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, well, I'll muse on that.
It'd be interesting to see this time next week if it's going to be in the vault report.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, that'll bring us to an end of this long podcast. I do apologise for that, but it's all Ted's fault. If you want to get in touch with us, you can by contacting us through gareth@techaddicts.uk. You can also find us on Twitter. There's @techaddictsuk or X, and I'm on Twitter as well, @Gareth Myles, GarethMyles. I also have Mastodon and Blue Sky, and I have my GarethMyles.com that has the aforementioned Y. There's a coffee link there if you want to send me a cup of coffee. Not that I ever use that coffee thing, to be honest. Ted, where can they find you?
I rejuvenated my X account this week because there was someone I wanted to follow, and the only place I could find them was on X. So I thought, yeah, I'll rejuvenate it. So that's up and running again. I think, yeah, I'm Ted Salmon UK on X. If anyone. I've got no followers at all, but anyway, paypal.me/Ted Salmon is where you can go to buy me a coffee if you want to. I'm on MeWe mostly, nearly all the time, but everything else I do is out of tedsalmon.com, so head there.
Cool. Well, that's cool, as I said. Right, well, we'll see you all next week for another rip-roaring installment, and in the meantime, let us know if you've had any adventures in tech whatsoever, and we'll have a chin wag about it next Sunday. All right, take care now. Goodbye.